Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Sharing Wisdom. I'm your host, Angie, and I'm excited today for this timely conversation with Joe Camberato. He is the CEO of National Business Capital. This guy has lended over $2 billion to thousands and thousands of businesses. And we're talking today about the economy, about lending, the perception of the market right now, so many great pieces. And what I love about him too is that he actually started this business right out of the spare bedroom of his house because of his passion for helping business owners. And here we are now 16 years later, and he's crushing it and serving business owners all over the place. So welcome, Joe. Super excited to have you, Joe. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Angie. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Like we said, we were talking earlier, it's such a timely time for this conversation right now. You and I were chatting a little bit about the market, the economy and what perceives to be, a recession in some places and business owners. So I can't wait to really dig in to two parts of your brain here. One, kind of the lending side for clients and understanding when do you reach out and get business funding and the nuts and bolts of that, because I think that's a little unknown for a lot of people. But I also want to talk about this current environment. And you said it really neat, and we'll get into it when you said there's kind of two types of business owners out there right now, one that are taking advantage of these opportunities and the others that are scared and probably overindulging in news right now. So a lot of good pieces that we're going to bring to the listeners today.
Absolutely.
So, first question.
I'm scared to jump into both sides of my brain, just by the way.
Don't worry, I'm really good at guiding people through this. So. And we're going to talk about how you built your business from the spare bedroom of your house into this, amazing booming business where, you've lent so much to so many business owners. So we're actually going to dig into three pieces there. So, but I know most people want to talk about and want to hear about kind of your perception of the economy and businesses in general. You have this unique position where people are coming to you for funding. So they're saying, we need money. And there's probably various reasons why. So let's start with that. When people come to you and they say, Joe, I need some money for my business, why are they asking?
Yeah. So, we see thousands of applications, per month. Since I started out of my spare bedroom till now, we've funded over $2 billion and we've done 27,000 transactions. And that number grows by the hundreds every single month and thousands every single year, which is crazy, and hundreds of millions every year on the funding side. So, right now, we're talking about this. I think there's two types of business owners. One that are scared and watch the news too much, and are too wrapped up in in the media, and are just scared to take action. They run off of fear. And this thing behind me, actually, it says fear less. You can't let fear run your business. And then the other type of business owner is like, screw this. I've been through these cycles before. The more experienced entrepreneur, the most talented entrepreneurs right now are recognizing that there's opportunity out there, and they are taking action and getting after it. And what's really wild, because what you see in the news is not what we experience on the ground level. And, we're the news and recession has, I think, been more Wall Street. On Main Street, we're not seeing the recession. People are working, unemployment's still low, and the businesses that are coming to us are profitable. They're doing great, have excellent credit, great profit. But just banks are so tight. It's just so challenging. They don't want to deal with it. And that's why they come to us. So the number one request right now is people are borrowing money actually for expansion, which does not line up if you watch the news. It's just completely different. And it's really interesting. And, there's a lot of, if you are focused and, the other thing too is we see two businesses, two of the same industries. We fund a lot of construction, contracting, builders, and then all other industries. We do every industry. We're industry agnostic. But from the construction level, when those folks are coming to us, they've got opportunities to build and to make things happen. and they need money to go do that stuff. But there's a lot of baby boomer businesses out there that are looking to retire, and people are looking to to sell. A lot of their kids don't want to take over the businesses, which is interesting. So there's a lot of really unique opportunities. So we're doing a lot of M&A. We're doing more business acquisitions than ever. And
Interesting.
Going back to what I was saying before I got sidetracked, we'll see two businesses in the same town. Let's just say in the construction contractor, same industry. One's doing really well, one isn't, and one's just stayed focused through COVID, didn't let COVID run their lives. They didn't run off of fear. They stayed focused. They stayed focused on the opportunity, and they've managed better through this. And then they've managed their supply chains, their vendors, their relationships, their marketing, their team. It's a lot of managing, but the best owners have managed well through this. And then we see others who haven't, that are in the same exact industry. So it's a very different recession than I've ever seen before, because usually when a recession happens, or when I came out of 08-09 recession, or it was the .com, .com was all tech got crushed. Out of 08-09, all construction and anything really tied to that was crushed. And a lot of luxury things, kind of slowed down tremendously.
Sure.
And it was kind of like across the board, but specific industries. In what we're experiencing now is one guy in one industry is killing it and one isn't. And really it just comes down to two different mindsets and how they've managed through all this.
I agree 100%. I see it with my clients and ones that are really thriving, and what that takes. And a lot of it is that mindset, the belief, the abundance. And I always like to say, when we have periods like this, it creates what I refer to as like a gap up opportunity, because you've got these business owners that are maybe in the same industry with you or your competitors, who, if they have that scarcity mindset, if they're fearful of the market, they kind of take their foot off the gas, which just kind of, exasperates what is actually happening. And so if you can really put your foot on the gas and take advantage of it, you really create this much larger gap between you and your competition in opportunities like this. So I love that you're pointing that out and seeing that. So right now, and I just want to make sure, and this may be a silly question, people are coming to you for funding for expansion and growth. So they're of the mindset of, now is the time, let's keep growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, and most of the deals that we fund are, growth opportunities, and they're all types of growth. Some are buying other businesses. Some are, there's, if you have a business tied to inventory, a lot of companies, a lot of suppliers, wholesalers overstock during COVID. So there's a lot of inventory deals out there. So people will borrow money and take advantage of a bulk discount, pricing.
Gotcha.
Some are opening up new locations. Some are, looking to hire new employees. Some are buying equipment, but they're all growth oriented, oriented things.
Yeah. Okay. So question for you. I know you said, you're not specific to one type of industry, and some people are crushing it and some people are failing in certain industries, but do you see a trend in any particular industry right now where you're getting a lot of requests for, whether it's the development or whether it's, manufacturing, anything in particular that you see as far as more growth?
Yeah, so it's pretty, it's pretty across the board. We definitely see a lot more, we're seeing a lot of construction, contracting, like all the like construction trades. When you think about it, we've underbuilt a lot of things in this country. So like housing, there's a shortage on. Sure. There's a lot of this whole new like the green plan that was rolled out from the government. So there's a lot of opportunity for things that are converting to, whether it's solar or improvement to be more energy efficient. There, and then there's a lot of infrastructure, that's being rebuilt right now. So we're seeing a lot of construction, a lot of opportunities there. I mean, it's pretty endless, and I think it's going to be that way for a while. we see a lot of e-commerce stuff, a lot of businesses and a lot of e-commerce businesses, kind of exploded and were invented through COVID. So we see a lot of that. And then, what's really cool to see is we're starting to see more manufacturing businesses and that's starting to take a comeback in the U.S. And there's a lot of incentives around that in that industry now to bring it back to the U.S. So that's really cool. And, because of technologies, 3D printing, and easier ways to manufacture things with robots and computers and being able to just make things a lot easier. You're starting to see some of this stuff actually, come back here. So we've been financing a lot of the equipment and working capital and stuff like that. So that's been really great to see.
Yeah. Okay. So you all heard it here. It's across the industry. What we perceived on the news and where the recession may be hitting isn't necessarily true what's going on in the real marketplace and with businesses. So with that being said, we do know in the market interest rates are higher right now. And when business owners are thinking about, should I be borrowing capital right now to get ahead? Obviously, there's that kind of risk reward and also ROI. And when you think about it, interest rates being so high, that's a big, big thing for business owners to consider if they're borrowing at, rates that are so above average. I know that you are not the norm. So can you talk a little bit about that as far as two questions? One, do you differ and how do you differ from, that traditional lending? And also what should business owners take into consideration when they're trying to figure out, is this worth it for me? This rate that I have to pay versus what my potential growth is?
Yeah, this is actually, it's a great question, Angie. And I'm glad you asked it because this conversation is probably, I have, 75 people here and this conversation is probably happening probably right now.
Yeah.
That interest rate talk, ROI, we're having this conversation every day with owners because listen, at the end of the day, you can't just run and borrow. You need to understand your opportunity, right? So I'd love to just tell the world, just go and borrow money. But it's got to make sense. And that's reality. And we're realistic and honest about that. And sometimes the deals don't make sense. And if they don't make sense, you shouldn't do them. A lot of times we find though, I think when it comes to a lot of things, in business and especially when it comes to financing, capital and interest, there's a lot more emotion that goes into it than logic. And a lot of just in general, us as humans, we make a lot of emotional decisions. And, when you're in business, you're moving fast and in life, everything's moving quickly. So a lot of times we're very quick to say yes or no on things without really laying out the facts and doing the math and the homework.
Sure.
And sometimes a little ego gets in the way of some of the best business owners because they say, hey, I'm not going to pay that. Well, right now, interest rates are up. If you go to a bank right now, prime rate's at 8%, 8.25% as we make this video. So if you have a deal from a bank at prime plus 3%, your interest rate's 11.25%. So,
wow.
And I've seen deals like that from, brand name banks right now. If there is collateral like equipment, if there's equipment or B2B receivables, which can be used as collateral. So if you're selling to like a big B2B business or inventory, your rates will be in the high single digits right now.
Okay.
Even if you get a deal from a bank, you'll be high single digits and then low double digits. Then when you go to non-bank lending, you're around 10, 12% and it goes higher, mid-teens. So a lot of people immediately go, mid-teens, that's crazy. A lot of sometimes we'll talk to people, they'll have a bank deal and they're like, yeah, I'm prime plus 3%. We're like, well, you're paying 11.25% right now. Did you know that? And they're like, what do you mean? And then we're like, well, check your statement. All this stuff gets auto debited now, so no one checks it. So, So what you need to know is you need to know your numbers, and that is really important. And you've got to do your math, but you have to understand the cycle of how things work in your business and how to use money or financing as a tool to grow your business. A lot of times borrowing money, even at higher rates right now, if the opportunity makes sense, one, it's cheaper than equity. And two, by sometimes not doing a deal, even though like you get caught up, the rate's high, I'm not going to do it. That actually can cost you more money by not doing a deal. And what I mean by that is if you don't have the capital in your business and you pass up an opportunity, well, if you have to pay 12% right now in interest, but you can make 30% on your opportunity, you still had an 18% margin, right?
Sure.
And we deal with other companies that sometimes have 40, 50%, even 100%, opportunities, in their returns. So if you do the math and back it out, you have to do the math. And does the ROI make sense? So I say, don't get caught up in the cost of capital. Get caught up in what your opportunity can do. Then back out, the cost of capital. And if your net margin is still there and makes sense, then do the deal. Don't pass it up. And if you are fearful about the economy, then this is the time when you should be doing any and every deal you possibly can to stack as much profit as possible to drive in another customer. Because if you think we're going to go into recession, then now's the time to make as much money as possible. If you don't think that we're going to go into recession, you don't care about it, then you got a deal, go take advantage of it and make more money. So I look at things a lot differently, and that's not just me. Some of the best and smartest entrepreneurs, that this is how they think, and they don't get caught up in what all the noise that's out there. They get caught up in what's going on in my business right now, what makes sense for me. I don't care what the guy down the block is doing or not doing. I care what makes sense for my business. And they walk away from bad deals and they jump at good deals, and they don't care about the cost, because if their opportunity outweighs it. Another important thing that I want to share is sometimes people don't understand the way financing works. Most people are great owners in their business, and whatever their business is, their trade is, their craft, and they don't get financing. And that's okay. That's why we're here. But if you have a sales cycle of 30 days, like you buy something and then you sell it and you get paid in 30 days and you make your money, right? Let's just say you make 5%. You might say, well, like, I can't borrow money at 10. I only make a 5% margin. Well, I'd say, no, you actually over the course of a year make 60%. So if you borrow money at 12% over 12 months, you actually are still making a 48% return on that money. And a lot of times people don't get that. They just get caught up and they don't like put it into their cycle. Right. Of how, if they lay something out, if they do a job, all right, if I do this, if I get this money, if I take on this job will take me 30 or 60 days. Here's the margin. But if you can rinse and repeat that, 6 times or 12 times over the year, you have to put that into your calculation. A lot of times you wouldn't believe how often we have this conversation when they go, wow, you're right. I never even, I didn't even think to do it like that. And I think it's really important because you can actually be walking from opportunities because you're not putting it into the cycle of how your business works and then the cost of capital the right way.
Yeah, so true. So true. It's either, breaking down that rate, per month versus over that year, or the other way, like you said, how many times can you reuse that capital and get your ROI on that? So very, very good advice there. Everything you're saying makes me think of, and I think it was Warren Buffett who said the quote, like, be greedy when times, people are fearful, and be fearful when people are greedy.
Absolutely. This is where the deals are
right now.
This is where the deals are.
Yeah.
100%. And the deals are out there. Now is the time to take action.
Yeah. So you said a couple of key things, especially you need to know your numbers. And I find that is very often, I come from the finance industry. I did lending first, then I moved into financial advising and money management. So I'm very familiar with it. And I think when you're in it, it's like, it's second nature to you, right? You don't think much about it. You just know. And many business owners, they don't ever get that education. Like you were saying, they're great at their craft, their trade, their business, but they don't know their numbers. And that really limits them as far as, I think, return on investment, lending, opportunities, all of that. So I'm curious from your perspective, when people come to you to borrow money, do they often know their numbers? Is that something that you get involved with in kind of helping them and educating them so they can see this path forward?
Yeah, we're here to help and educate, and we take this like advisor type of approach. Some of them are really great at knowing their numbers, and the bigger companies have CFOs, and they're really dialed into this.
Sure.
I think the typical business owner doesn't know the numbers, and they've built their business off of gut, and I don't knock that. Listen, I did that in the beginning as well too. I trusted my gut, and it served me really well, and it still does. But now I dive into my own numbers, and I'm a little bit more strategic in the way I do things. I think a lot of business owners just move in its gut feel, and they just don't take the time to stop and do things. And most typical small businesses don't necessarily have like a CFO or the resources, so they're just doing things by gut and feel, and are busy. So it does make time to stop and to put some pencil to paper, and put a little bit of a plan together.
Yeah. What would you say is the number one kind of myth or, limiting belief around business funding with clients?
Yeah, it's funny. I meant to bring this up before, and it slipped my mind when we were talking. We've been programmed from our grandparents and parents that money, like debt, is evil.
Yep.
Like don't have any debt. No debt. Debt is bad. And so I agree with that. If you are putting things on credit cards that are luxury that you don't need, that aren't going to make you more money, and you don't have the money for it, debt is evil and it's bad, and it will put you in a very bad place. If you're buying the car that you don't deserve or really can't afford and don't really need, then that debt can be bad. If you're buying a house that is beyond your means, debt is bad. But if you're using, debt in anything, a business and in real estate and buying something, reselling it, whatever it is, and any type of debt, if you're using debt as a tool to make you more money, and in your business, you should be using it for growth. You shouldn't be using it to fund, losses. In the beginning, you might have to do that, but that should be a temporary thing, not a permanent solution. So when you're using debt to fund growth, to fund making more profit, debt is a great thing. And some of the smartest, most talented, most successful businesses and entrepreneurs know how to use debt and other people's money really well. Depending on what your business is, if you're trying to grow and just make profit, in order to grow, you can either do it organically off of cash flow, and that's a very slow moving process. Unless you have some ridiculous profit margin, which most businesses don't have. Or you have to sell equity in your business, you have to put in your own money, or you have to borrow money, which is debt. So debt is a great tool when you put it to work to make more, and to make a profit. But a lot of things that a lot of business owners don't think about too. Some businesses have great opportunities to build a nice multiple and have a really good exit. Some certain businesses don't have big multiples, and you really just got to focus on cash flow and profit and pulling money out. And that's okay.
Yeah. But
you need to know which one of those that you are. And if it is profit, then focus on profit, use debt to make more profit, and go make more profit. If you use the right financing, you can do more sales and make a lot more profit if you know your numbers. If it's a, hey, I'm going to grow this thing, I get an awesome multiple, I'm going to scale the hell out of it and then have an exit, well, then that's great. You can use a debt as a tool to get there. Even if your margins are thin with using debt, your whole goal is building market share and equity in your business and building up that multiple. So use debt to get there and then sell and have a better acquisition without having to give up equity and keeping more of the pie. So I think those are the biggest myths. Is that it's so funny. I mean, we've had companies and great companies, and they'll borrow money. They do something, they make money, and they're like, okay, I paid off the money, like I'm good, and you're like, no,
I'm done
rinse
with
and
that.
repeat. do it. Yeah. Like, no, like what are you doing? Keep going. It worked. Why would you stop? And it's funny sometimes when you take a risk, you get out of your comfort zone and you're like, you do it and you're like, it worked. And you're like, oh, thank God. All right. It worked. I'm out. Like, it's like, it's like doing something scary. You're like, all right, I did it. I'm good. I'm never doing it again, but it's that always really fascinated me with businesses. If it's working, I mean, God, you should want to borrow as much money as you possibly can and grow the heck out of your business if you're doing it profitably. Yeah.
So true. Yeah. And it is funny. It's just maybe like you said, the way we were kind of groomed or how you view the debt. And it is, I mean, my biggest, most successful clients, I mean, they kind of have a boatload of debt on their businesses because it's worth it, right? Like it actually is a great return on their investment when they have a ton of product and, they're manufacturing for a lot of different people. So if it makes sense, it makes sense. And I love that you brought up the whole selling your company, because I often talk to people about selling their company. They want to get out, but their valuations aren't quite high enough. They're not as attractive as they want to be in this given moment. So it really does put them in this space of like, oh man, I kind of got to do this again for 4 more years, 6 more years to get to those numbers. And really, if you looked at maybe the debt side of it, you'd have that opportunity to increase those numbers a little bit faster to get that purchase price that you want. Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important.
I wanted to ask you about your own business, because I always love to talk to entrepreneurs who started from their spare bedroom and built the business from there. I'm right there with you. So kind of take me from that starting point. First of all, what in the world even possessed you to go, I'm going to be, the money man and lend people money and start this business?
That's funny. Well, that's exactly what I wanted to be. I wanted to be the money guy. And initially I just wanted to be the local money guy to help local businesses. I came from the mortgage business, and a lot of my customers were self-employed, and I was watching them refinance their homes or use home equity line of credits to fuel their companies. A lot of them kept asking me for business loans, and I just couldn't understand why they couldn't go to their bank. I'm like, well, just go to your bank and get a business loan. And this is 05, 06. And, I don't have enough collateral, or I don't show enough profit, or the bank's a pain in the ass, or whatever it was. And I didn't get it. And 3 people asked me for a business loan in 1 month. So I literally, took one of the owner's applications or all their info, and I brought it to one of the banks that we work with that had a commercial division, a big, well-known bank. And I said, I've got this great business restaurant, catering hall. They wanted to buy another catering hall. And the bank laughed at me. They're like, we hate restaurants. And I said, well, they've got a great business and a great opportunity. Someone's got to do this. Can you point me in the right direction? And they sent me to this private lender, referred me to another private lender. Long story short, I found this whole world of private lending. I wound up getting the deal done. I got them the money they needed. They bought the business, and I watched them expand and grow. And I was just completely fascinated and really hooked, and had this aha moment of like, wow, now this is in 05, 06. There was most of these lenders didn't have websites. So if you didn't know them through the good old boys club, or through, your attorney or accountant, and if your attorney accountant was even in that world, then you just never found a lot of these lenders. So, I said, wow, I was able to take, through some work and shopping around, I found the right lender. I got them the money they needed, and their business grew. And I'm like, there's this whole country has built on small businesses. I'm seeing all of them have the same challenge. And I came from the mortgage broker world where, a customer would come to us. We had all the banks, and we would just go to the right bank and get you the best deal that was out there. And nothing existed for business lending. And that made no sense to me. So I'm like, wow, there's definitely a need for this. So I just went off on my own and was going to, just help local businesses. And then I went right in the 08, 09 recession, the financial crisis, everything crashed. My house was on the line, credit cards. I mean, I went into it, no credit card debt, great credit, money in the bank, and then went to no money in the bank and almost losing my home, pretty quickly. And it was a scary time. I fought through it. And what happened after that was pretty amazing. And just kind of going back to what we're talking about now, this was one of the most effed up, scariest times of my life. Mm-hmm. And I stayed focused in a very rough time where I had everything on the line. So, if you're a business owner and you're going through that, I get it. And I truly respect it. I've been there.
Yeah.
I instead of getting wrapped up in all the bad things that were happening, I was like, wow. Well, and I always thought if the mortgage, in that era, like home prices were going crazy, rates were low. And I said, well, if that changes, everyone's going to need, business owners aren't going to access from their homes. They're going to need these, private lending sources, these alternative lending sources.
Sure.
Well, I didn't realize how spot on I was going to be, but I couldn't have been more right. And what happened after that was this really alternative lending boom. But I was already in the middle of it, establishing and building out systems, processes, uniforming an application process, but it took a little bit to get there. That didn't just happen overnight. But I fought through it and kept going, and then I realized I was onto something, and I moved out of my house, got some small space, and hired the first few people, and then just kept reinvesting and growing, and then here we are. This December will be 16 years since I moved out of since I started, and we funded over $2 billion in business loans. We've done over 27,000 transactions. We've built great tech and made it really easy. We have over 75 lenders on the platform, from SBA to term loans to lines of credit to equipment financing. But we also have a really cool culture, a great team of people. We're all about helping business owners grow and, accessing capital. And, this doesn't feel like 08, 09, but there's definitely some remnants or like little, we're going through another cycle. So there's some things that are somewhat similar, but it is very different. But I could tell you that I started my business in the middle of one of the worst financial crises ever, and was also tied to lending and financing, and that, and I used that, I didn't let the fear of that. I could have easily walked away. I mean, it was so hard and so challenging in the beginning. And because I stayed focused on the opportunity, here we are today. And it was also some of the best lessons that I could have learned, early on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, like, wow, what a time to get into the industry. It's like, welcome, crash landing there. And I mean, that truly 100%. Was a time that wiped people out. I mean, I hear stories still every day of that was the hardest time, and it wiped out my business, and I lost my house and all of that. So I think it's so important for people to hear what you said as far as staying focused and fighting through it. And what I really heard that stood out to me more than anything is the fact that because you didn't face this as like, oh my gosh, look what's happening to me, right? You didn't become this victim. You almost had this mentality of like, okay, why is this happening for me? And you were able to see that opportunity to go, if this is cutting off over here in the mortgage world and people aren't going to be able to tap into equity, they're going to need it for their businesses. And you just don't see possibilities like that when you get into that beat up victim scarcity mindset.
100%. And it was the best thing that could have happened to me. Looking back now, I chose to stay focused through that chaos, and the timing actually couldn't have been better. Like, actually, thank God that happened. Like, it really created this alternative lending, boom. It also created a lot of opportunities in so many other areas, and the people that were focused on it did really well. Someone said to me, you're not dying, you don't have cancer, you're not going to jail. Like, you'll figure it out. Like, shut up that you can't pay your credit cards. Like, we live in the best country in the world.
Right.
Like, you're not going to go to jail because you can't pay your credit cards. And the whole thing is in that time, in that, 0809, that crash in Dubai, there was more like Lamborghinis and Ferraris in the airport parking lot. People were fleeing the country because if you don't pay your obligations, they will throw you in jail until you can get caught up.
Yeah.
And, and this entrepreneur told me this, and a friend of his, got diagnosed unfortunately with cancer, and he had like 6 months to live. And he was like, dude, you don't got cancer, you're not dying, you're not going to jail. Like, it's all good. You'll figure it out. Just stay focused. This is going to lead to a lot of opportunity, in every economy, there's gold. Sometimes it's just harder to find, and, focus on the gold. And so I stayed focused, and I really fought through it. Was it easy? Hell no. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But because of staying focused on the opportunity, I was able to do well. And just talking through this with you, just going back to like when we first started this conversation, Angie, it really, I'm seeing it now with business owners that come in here. They're the ones that are like, there's opportunity. We're going after it. They're like, they're getting after it, and they're doing well. And when things turn, they're going to do really well. And I'll never forget like 2010, 11, 12, 13, even like 14 and 15, just people I knew, they would just kept talking about the good old days.
Yeah.
That we had this run back leading up to 08, 09, and everyone's like, oh, the good old days, it'll never be like that again, blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, I was going into days that blew away the good old days, and I'm like,
right,
the good old days, like the good old days are right now. Like, you have the choice to every day you can create the good old days, right? Because yesterday is a good old day, right? And today's a new one. And I was recreating the good old days, and some people got so stuck in the past and just got pulverized and I believe that, like most people, I think what really my advantage is I can get caught up to reality, like what's happening, very fast. Like, when COVID happened and like the world shut down, very quickly, I was clear-headed. I wasn't freaked out, and I was able to take action because I knew that shit was changing really quick, and I needed to make decisions quickly in order to do what I needed to get through that bad time where, things were good, and then all of a sudden they weren't, but people get so caught in, I just want them to be the way they were yesterday. Well, guess what? They're not. And you need to fucking move now. Otherwise, you're going to get your ass kicked. And I think from being able to like, just be like, yeah, no, that's fucking over. Like now we have to make decisions on this. That is really important to business. You can't get I used to sell this product and make so much money. Then my competition came in and blah, blah, blah. Like, you're not selling the product for that much anymore. You need to create a new product or figure out how to be better with selling the current one or pivot. Like, you got to keep moving, so.
Yeah. I feel like you are totally just reliving back where you were. And I heard your Long Island coming out for sure, right? You're like, I will not get stuck here and be pulverized.
No, it was not an option. It was like, let's go, And
I heard, what you're talking about, what you talk to clients about all the time is you got to stay in the present moment. You can't think about what happened yesterday and miss the good old days, right? Or fear that they're never going to come again, because all of that takes you out of that moment, which you just described was like, we're right here, right now. And what do we need to do to take action to keep moving? And so, I was going to ask you a minute ago, like, what specific thing did you do to kind of get through that? But I think you shared it with us in a sense that it was like focusing on the here and now, finding gratitude for it so you could find your opportunities. Is that what I'm
100%. And the biggest thing is just mindset, keeping my mindset in check. That's been the biggest, my mindset in check has been the biggest, biggest part of my success through, starting the business 08, 09, through challenges that come up along the way, unexpected things, life things that don't even have to do with business. And then through COVID, it was really all mindset and putting things in perspective. Through COVID, I was saying, "Oh, how lucky am I that I have a business to lose?" People thought I was crazy, but I meant that. Like, you know what? All right, I'll figure it out. And it was not fun, but I kept my mindset in check. I was, exercise and meditating every single day, like just putting myself into that good place and staying focused, and also taking the time to think about the decisions that I was making. And those things are really, really important.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have to say, you just named several things that of the practice that I put my clients on. I heard gratitude in there. I heard your values showing up, what makes you feel good, the being present in your meditation. So many things that really are key components. No matter what you're in, if you stick with some of these key components, you're going to adjust your mindset. You're going to get through it. So love all that. I want to do something real quick as we wrap up here. I want to ask you some rapid fire questions about lending, because I think that there are so many people who, when you don't know your numbers, you don't pursue things, you don't even ask. And so you don't know. And I think it'd be really cool if I can just ask you, you're going to have to just fire away and answer at me, even though you're going to want to explain when I know it. But let's just see here. Okay. So how many years do you have to be in business to probably get a loan?
6 to 12 months.
Okay. And do you have to have a certain amount of revenue in order to even probably consider applying for a loan?
You, if it's for your existing business, we really like to see at the very minimum $10,000 to $20,000 a month in gross revenue. You can buy a business if you don't own one using an SBA loan and only have to put down 10%. The business you're buying needs to be profitable.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there a minimum amount that people have to borrow when they want a business loan?
For us, it's typically 10 to 20,000 on the very, very small end. So yeah, that's for us.
Okay. And would you say that you have to have the need for the money first, or do you think that it's also advisable for people to get a line of credit so that when the need and the opportunity comes up, it's there for them?
I think if you can get a line of credit, and we do those, you should always have one of those on the sidelines, because when opportunity strikes, it's like you need the money yesterday. You definitely want to have at the very least like a lending relationship, even borrow a small amount of money, repay it, just so you have like a go-to financing partner. But if you're going to borrow money, you should obviously have a plan. But having a line of credit on the sidelines super important, so you can move fast.
Okay. Is it painful? Does it hurt to actually just ask some questions about getting a business loan?
No, not at all. I mean, we do that every day. Like, you can call and talk to us. We have a rock star team of great people here that get business and also get all the lender guidelines. So we're happy to answer your questions. And when you're ready, you come back to us. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. I love how serious you took that question. That was supposed to be a joke, Joe, but obviously come through.
I thought it was a real question. Was it painful for you? No, I could do this in my.
I don't mean painful for you. I mean painful for the person calling, because I feel like, again, business owners, if you don't know your numbers and it's an area, uncharted waters, we just don't ask enough. And, you don't want to be vulnerable. You don't want to know. But I just always encourage, and not just in lending, but in any space, it's like, call people who know, ask questions, get
100%.
information.
Yeah. No, you're right with that. And I get the question now. I do think, most owners, I mean, listen, it's an ego thing. We know, we don't want to know that, that some, we don't want to let anyone know that we don't know about, these things. Right. But, listen, whatever industry you're in, right, just put it this way. My business is lending, right? I know business lending. I happen to know about a lot of industries because we lend to a lot of them. But for the most part, if you're in transportation or construction or e-commerce or whatever, like, I wouldn't know how to go move a tractor trailer or, or build a house, or I wouldn't even know where to start, So if I was going to go build my own home, I'd go get a contractor and, work with them. I understand my taxes and tax return, but I use an accountant. Just like if you're going to borrow money, you should be using a good group, a good advisor that can, tell you the different lending products that are out there, who's lending, who's not, what the rates and terms are. And that's really, what we do.
I love it. So you heard that, y'all. No shame. Ask questions. It's how you learn. It's how you will understand more. So, Joe, this has been awesome. I have one more question for you. I always ask my guests, it's all about sharing wisdom, what we're doing here, which you've done a tremendous job of. But I want to ask you, what is the most important piece of wisdom that anyone has shared with you that you continue to use again and again?
I definitely, I feel like I shared a few of them, on the call today. I think, putting in perspective, mindsets, everything. There's gold in any economy. Sometimes it's just harder to find. That. I mean, that one's really helped, keep me focused and drive me. And it's been really, really important. And even prior to COVID, there's been ups and downs coming out of, the last recession. So that one really fuels me. And the other one, I would just... All right, I'll leave it there. I love these nuggets. I can go all day. Let's keep going.
I know. I'm like, I sense it. I see them coming.
Join a business group. I'm a part of YPO. There's groups like EO, YPO, Vistage. Getting around like a peer group of other entrepreneurs has been a game changer. I did that 7 years ago now. I wish I would have done that like out of the gate. It's helped me tremendously in my growth.
Love it. Such a good conversation, Joe. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom. You can find Joe. He's National Business Capital. He's there for your lending needs, but just an awesome guy too. Awesome story. So thanks so much, Joe. I appreciate you sharing all your wisdom with us. Tell everyone where they can find you.
You can check out my company at nationalbusinesscapital.com, and you can follow me at Grow by Joe.
Grow by Joe.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.